There are wounds that never bleed on the outside. You can't see them. You can't touch them. But they live inside you, quiet, deep, and constant, like a scar that never fully heals. My name is Layla. And the deepest wound I ever carried was my father's voice. He wasn't a cruel man in the way the world understands cruelty. He never raised his hand. He never screamed in rage. No, my father was far more precise than that. He used words. Carefully chosen, perfectly timed words that cut deeper than any blade ever could. General Hassan Karimi. Decorated military officer. Respected by hundreds. Feared by thousands. And completely, utterly disappointed in me. I was his only daughter in a household built on discipline, rank, and honor. My two older brothers followed him into the military like shadows follow the sun. Both officers. Both decorated. Both exactly what he envisioned when he imagined his legacy. And then there was me. I remember being 7 years old, sitting at the dinner table, proudly telling him I had won first place in my school's debate competition. I thought he would smile. I thought he would reach across the table and squeeze my hand the way fathers do in the movies. Instead, he looked at me over the rim of his tea glass and said, "That is nice. But it is nothing." I was 7. That word, nothing, became the background noise of my entire childhood. My academic awards were nice but nothing. My early acceptance to university was expected but nothing. My decision to enlist, the one choice I made that I thought would finally speak his language, was met with a long silence and then. "Women don't belong in combat roles, Layla. You will embarrass this family." I didn't cry that night. I had already run out of tears for him years before. What I did instead was train. I trained when my body begged me to stop. I trained when my mind told me it was pointless. I trained in the cold, in the heat, through injury, through loneliness, through every echo of his. The military doesn't care whose daughter you are. It doesn't care about your last name, your father's medals, or the weight of everything you're trying to prove. It strips you down to your bones, and then it asks one simple question. What are you made of? My first year was brutal. I won't pretend otherwise. I was surrounded by men who had grown up being told they were strong, and I had grown up being told I was nothing. That gap shows. It lives in the way you hesitate a half-second too long. The way you flinch before you decide. My commanding officer noticed it immediately. "Karimi," he said one evening after training, "you fight like someone who's afraid of winning. Stop asking for permission to be good." Those words cracked something open in me. I stopped waiting for validation. I stopped performing for an invisible audience. I trained for myself, only myself, and something extraordinary happened. I became very, very good. 2 years in, I was selected for a specialized reconnaissance unit. 3 years in, I was leading operations that most soldiers twice my age hadn't qualified for. And somewhere along that journey, I stopped thinking about my father entirely. Or so I told myself. The truth is, he was always there. A ghost at the edge of every achievement. I would complete a mission successfully, and in the quiet after, his voice would whisper, "Still nothing." Then came the call from my mother. It was a Tuesday evening. She called me 3 times before I answered. I was in the middle of a debrief. When I finally picked up, her voice was shaking. "Your father is receiving his Lifetime Honor Award next month," she said. "There will be a ceremony. He wants the family there." A pause. "He asked about you, Layla." I almost laughed. He asked about me the way a man asks about a door he once closed, not because he missed the room, but because he vaguely remembered it existed. My mother's voice softened. "Please come." For me. I went. For her. Only for her. The serum. Ghost 13 was my call sign. I had carried it for 2 years across operations that were classified, dangerous, and, apparently, far more noticed than I had ever realized. I stood up from that back row. And I walked to the front of that room. I didn't look at my father as I passed him. I kept my eyes forward, my back straight, my steps measured, everything they trained me to be. The senior official shook my hand and spoke of reconnaissance missions that had protected entire units, of operations completed under impossible conditions, of a soldier who had, in his words, redefined what quiet excellence looks like. The room applauded. And then, only then, I let myself look at my father. His face was something I will never forget for the rest of my life. It wasn't guilt exactly. It wasn't even pride, though something close to it moved behind his eyes like a shadow. It was something rawer than either of those things. It was the face of a man who had been completely, undeniably wrong, and who knew, in that moment, that everyone in that room knew it too. My mother was crying quietly in her seat. My brothers were standing. And my father, General Hassan Karimi, decorated and respected and feared, slowly rose from his chair. Not because protocol required it. Because he chose to. He stood for me. After the ceremony, he found me near the doors. The crowd moved around us like water around two stones. He looked older up close than he did from a distance. Smaller, somehow. He said nothing for a long moment. Then, quietly, in a voice I had never heard from him before, he said, "I was wrong about you, Layla." 6 words. 6 words for 30 years of silence and dismissal and nothing. I looked at him for a long time. And I thought about the 7-year-old girl at the dinner table. About every cold morning I trained through his voice. About every tear I swallowed instead of letting him see. And I said, "I know, Baba. I know." I didn't say it with anger. I didn't need to. The